U.S. Foods proudly presents Offset with Kinger and the Big Man, alongside the big man, Jay Caulfield, and Dave Ricchini, our former producer and good pal and all-around sports enthusiast. I'm Rob King. Thanks very much for being with us at the North Park Lounge in Cranberry, owned by our buddy Brad Dressen. Want to also give a quick shout-out to One Team Media, setting all this stuff up, making everything look great, making everything easy. Otherwise, this would be an audio at best. Maybe audio if it wasn't for them. So, guys, lots to get to here. The U.S. Open. Let's start there. Your thoughts generally on what you saw and what you enjoyed, and if there were things you didn't enjoy, and Spaun winning, and there's a lot to go over here, Jay.
Yeah, I think, Spaun, I was happy for him, because if we all watched, and everybody probably was watching, if you saw what he went through the first 5 holes of the final round, he just kept it together, and he talked about it. He talked about his experience with McIlroy and sudden death before, or in extra holes when in his last championship, and I think, and he made the shots coming down. The birdie 17 and 18. Yeah, I think it was great. And I think all the guys who were in the run at the end were all likable. You could have enjoyed any one of them winning. If the guys were in the hunt, there was a grind, and it looked like a grind. You know, we were at Allegheny Country Club, and it was a grind, and it was only misting out for 4 holes. So I can't imagine what they're going through with that pressure. But, yeah, great by him, and the finishing off the way he did, outstanding.
How about bogey in 18 on day 3? And then did you see the story about how one of his children were sick? He had to run out to the drugstore to get Pedialyte at 3 a.m. in the morning.
I didn't see that, no.
The morning of your final round, you move out of the final pairing, you go out there, you bogey 5 of your first 6 holes, and then those conditions change with the weather. And everybody that started going back, like at the end, Burns, Scott, they continued to go back. And somehow he recovered 1 bogey in his final 12 holes, 3 birdies. Unbelievable. Just
somewhere, Robert, somewhere in this conversation, we got to talk about the Burns. We'll talk about the Burns thing too.
Talk about yeah. So I will say this about Spaun and about his round. And one of the things that I thought about the U.S. Open, and I think I mentioned this when we were talking about it prior to the Open starting, was I like an event in which somebody can win it at the end and not have somebody just hang on and, not bogey, and that's good enough to win it. I mean, sometimes that's going to happen. One of the reasons I love the Masters so much is the back 9, you can blow up, but if you're playing well, I mean, you got a 2 par 5s, you can birdie 16, you can birdie 18, where that pin placement is a birdieable hole, as we've seen in the past, guys making big putts there. I wasn't sure if the U.S. Open was going to set up for that at Oakmont, but with 17 and then with 18, these guys just hit it so far now. Yeah. I mean, that used to be a mid-iron into 18. Now these guys are flipping a 9-iron in there, and it made the hole, at least gave you an opportunity to go at it and make birdie. So that, I was pleasantly surprised by how the course set up in that regard, and Spaun won it. He didn't just hang on and not lose it. He won it down the stretch.
Oh, guys climb back. I mean, as Dave mentioned, guys faltering and things not going their way. Because I heard the announcers and they're going, oh, he's falling apart. Well, to me, you're 3 feet off the fairway and you're 6 inches of rough.
Right.
I'm not really sure that's really, faltering.
Right.
I mean, their games came apart only because every shot they had. You got to get on. First, it's one thing chipping onto a green and one thing chipping onto Oakmont greens, even when they're wet.
Right.
I thought it was extremely difficult, but and the cream rose to the top, and it was Spaun. So he did a great job. And that McIntyre, how many shots back was he to start the day? And he comes up.
I think it was 7, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Right, yeah. So to me, I think it was any shot just offline at all. And the other guys did it. Spaun didn't. And I think it's what made it entertaining, or at least brought everything. The finish to me, the fans hanging out there through the weather, all the elements, and they're all there. But to see him do it that way, it was pretty good. And I mentioned the Sam Burns thing because, to me, he kept his composure, didn't lose it. And whether we want to talk, like the 15th hole thing for me, casual water, your step-in water's coming up. Cannot believe they didn't let him get relief from that. And that killed him right there.
Right.
I mean, to me, they made a decision twice. 2 rules officials come over and don't give them the relief. I mean, we all know guys are water.
Right.
The club's going through the water, it's spraying. I thought that was, even Adam Scott, his playing partner, said he should have relief.
Right.
I don't get that.
Well, the announcer said that too. They didn't understand that rule.
Yeah. You took a guy right out of it.
Right.
And then listen, the better man who can handle that situation mentally. You get turned down again. You know it's in a bad spot. What difference would it have been for him? Just the great players that they are, but you left them in casual water, and you can see when you're stepping on the water's rising. I don't know what. Maybe the rule is something different than what we've always thought it is. I think if you step it, does it have to be showing all the things that came into play? I think they made a mistake and they took a guy right out of it.
I think it even affected Adam Scott the previous hole when he flew the green. He was on 14. He had 100 in, and he had to change his swing because he was afraid of hitting it fat, chunking it, flies it over the green, and that started his downfall. I agree with the Burns thing. There was no recovery. As soon as he knew in his mind he was going to hit a bad shot.
Right. Yeah.
On the fairway, pull to the left, and you saw a couple guys, that water effect and on the fairway pulling their shots left. That was a tough.
It was kind of funny. So they don't give him that, but they made. I'm not sure who was putting on the green. It might have been Young. I'm not sure who it was. He was putting, and the water was behind the hole, and he's going to roll it anyway, and they wouldn't let him do it until the water was cleared. Okay, so you didn't let him putt that, even though it was behind the hole, but you're making Burns play out of it. I thought that was. I would have liked to see what it would have been like down. And again, I'm happy for Spaun and what he wants. I just would have liked to see where Burns would have been at as it came down the stretch.
Real quick, you talked about that finish, his drive on 17, Spaun. He hit that, he won it. So he hit that, it's like, okay, 2-putt birdie.
Yeah.
All you have to do is go into 18 and par, but saying a lot.
Hey, I mean, listen, the putt, I think we all know a long putt like that at Oakmont, and not only does he drain it, but, I mean, you're thinking, if he three-putts, three-putts,
right.
You got McIntyre waiting for him. They already knew the playoff was going to be the next day.
How far by do you think that would have gone if it didn't go in?
I don't think it was. I think it looked like he was slowing down.
A couple feet?
Yeah, I do think that.
Okay.
The other if Hovland doesn't put his second shot right behind his,
right?
How does that?
Right.
64 feet. That's no easy two.
It was the
one break he got.
The longest putt made all week at Oakmont.
How about
that putt?
Yeah. By the way, and I know maybe people watching might know, but that they changed the rule that it wasn't. A lot of people thought there was still going to be an 18-hole playoff.
Right.
It would have been today. No more, just a 2-hole. Sudden death. Still, Masters is the only one in sudden death. The other ones are aggregate, right?
Right.
So PJ's 3-hole aggregate, I believe. US Open now 2. And I think the British is a 4-hole. I think it's 4-hole aggregate.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back to when Watson was in that playoff many years ago. Remember when he bogeyed 18, had a chance to win it? I will say this. I do, when you talk about the mental part of it, because you guys, there's a lot of stuff to talk about with the stuff you guys just mentioned. The mental part of it. So I was out there with my son Schaefer on Thursday, and we watched, we sat behind a couple of holes, and I was trying to tell him, look, it is just a grind for these guys. I think mentally, I don't care if you're a pro or not a pro. It is so hard to keep the ball within a couple of feet of the hole. If you're up, you have an uphill putt, and we saw a lot of uphill putts left short because guys are just kind of conditioned to just trying to get it around the hole somewhere. I mean, I think we talked about it before. Lee Trevino had the comment, anytime I 2-putt at Oakmont, I know I'm picking up ground on the field. Yeah. But I just think when you have 3, 4, 5-foot putts again and again and again for par that are breaking, that are downhill, it is a mental grind to have to win the U.S. Open. I mean, on those greens, and Spaun did it. He ground through some horrendous luck in the first few holes. And I think he said, he did say afterwards, the rain delay helped them. Like, that helped them gather together. Hey, they said, you did a great job keeping your composure. How'd you do? He said, well, I didn't really keep my composure. I was angry. Then he pulled it together.
After 2.
Right.
The 1 on 2.
Oh,
what he went through on 1 is one thing. Then he hits the flag on 2. Other thing was the change of the shirt, which we all know there's some. Did you see the shirt that he had?
Of the Pittsburgh shirt, yeah.
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
Smart move. Was that in the bag all the time? I mean, where'd they come out? That was a great move right there.
By the way, I had sympathy for him because if people remember the pin, hitting the pin, and then it picked up ground, and then it caught that second swale. That second swale is where I hit my my approach shot a couple years ago. I'm like, okay, well, after a bad bogey on one, I was all steamed up, not that I would ever get steamed up on the golf course. And I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna hey, 2-putt here and get myself back on track. And then I'm walking up and I'm like, what's coming down the green there? Oh, it's my ball. And it wound up about where his ball wound up.
Well, how about this?
It wasn't quite as bad as this.
So that happens on 2. Then we know 3's in the church pews, right? Hung up, right? Then coming back on 4's on the other side of it. To me,
he hit a rake too somewhere.
Yeah, caught the rake, kept it. Yeah,
right.
There's a guy that hung in. We all know it when we're playing, and just for $20 we're playing, and we're like, can anything go more sideways than what was happening for them? I don't know. To me, to hang in with it. You talked about the break, Dave. Certainly, he was the one guy that came out of it, as they all talked about, and McIntyre. But I think that's what made that part pretty special, because that's the part about golf and what it means is it's your mind, and he certainly controlled that, certainly down the stretch.
And he kept his composure while having to break a tee marker or throw his club like Bori.
Right.
Like that wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah. So it goes.
Well, if we probably went around, I don't think anybody is, but I'm sure we don't see a lot of video of guys probably toss it. Probably nothing worse than Wyndham Clark if that's what happened. If Wyndham Clark did what he talked about, the lockers.
Right.
That's way worse.
Mm-hmm.
I get the display on the golf course. I get that.
Yeah.
But if I'm sure it's true. Why would somebody post that if it wasn't? Then I want to see what the PGA does about that.
Right. Did you think overall now, as we look back at this, we talked about how tough Oakmont is. And I think there was a lot of expectation that the winner was going to be over par, as Cabrera was a couple of Opens ago. Did you like it? Did you think it was too tough? Would you like it a little bit easier? Did you think it was the right way to go?
Be honest.
Yeah, my honest opinion. I think I listened to Bob Ford leading up to which I thought the coverage leading up to the Open was great. And Bob Ford was on one night, which was great to listen to. And he talked about it, the way they want it to be, the phones and everything. If you don't make a shot, if you don't make the right shot, you get punished. Well, that's what they had.
Mm-hmm.
But then you bring in the rain and the elements all with it. Did the rough have to be, do I want to see guys chopping out of the rough all the time? Not really, but that's the way it was. Everybody faced the same thing,
mm-hmm.
and they know coming in. But I still always thought that to me, I forget who said it. They said Oakmont at any time, whether it be Jack Nicklaus or Arnie Palmer or whatever, but Jack Nicklaus, if it was him, Oakmont at any day.
Right.
You go to play, could host a major.
Exactly.
Just the normal, what the conditions, what the members have to play in every day. And Dave played there a lot too, and Rob. So did it have to be that high? I don't know if I didn't love that part to the nth degree of it, but I understand. They knew it coming in. It was going to be that high, and they all faced it.
I think one of the things for me as I was walking the course, I think probably the only hole, I'm like 15. I don't know how you hold that fairway on 15, yeah. And it's such a long hole and a brutal hole, and there's bunkers, and it slopes, and it's very, very narrow. The fairways are narrow. I think, after I walked the course, because my inclination is to agree with you, Jay, that, that's awfully punitive for fairways that are narrow. I also think, though, that if you play well, as we saw,
yep.
you can score.
Yeah.
But if you're the least bit wayward, then you can't score. And so, maybe if there's a little bit of a taper, maybe, because those fairways are narrow. They are not wide fairways.
No.
And because the course is so long, you have to hit driver,
So Dave, before Dave has his, I was going to say, a lot of times you might think about that if you're, what's the course's defense? Well, Oakmont's always the greens.
Right.
So they got to go through all that. Then they've got the greens to deal with.
Right.
If they didn't have greens that were that, difficult, then, wouldn't host probably wouldn't host the U.S. Open.
Right.
The greens
right.
are is the course is defense, one of the defenses. I think it looked beautiful, and it's a shame the weather got into it the way it did, but I thought it looked amazing to see it that way. But I do think it's tough, and I do feel like the greens alone make it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And the members from there, they play it all the time, and you have to do it. But the rough, I think probably 2+ inches higher than maybe 2 to 3 inches higher than what it normally might be.
Right.
That's tough.
And even at that, I think it would be tough enough. Like I wonder how much the rough. I mean, if it was 4 inches instead of 6 or 7 inches, what would the scores be? Because you still have to hold those greens, even if you went to attack those greens. And there's also a lot of bunkers, and I've been in them, where you have to play backwards or sideways or just, you're hitting from, you get in the fairway. Not that I would know this exactly. The fairway on the right-hand side, just over the hill on 10. Not that I would know that exactly. You are blasting out like you're in a fairway, like you're in a greenside bunker. You're just like, I need to get out of this and hit it 10 feet and just try to get it in the fairway and then hit my third. So I do wonder, because you're not going to be able to spin the ball out of the rough. So even if you could attack the fairway,
that's what
or the greens from the rough, I mean.
What I don't like about the rough was it was inconsistent. Every time a player hit in the rough, it was always a lie. Hovland hit some great shots out of the rough. He was able to spin it. He did it I think twice on two, where he's able to spin it out of there. It all depends on the luck you get. Where is the gallery standing? Where are they walking? I didn't like that. As Jay pointed out, a couple times guys were 2 feet into the rough and you couldn't see the ball.
Right. The worse you hit it,
if
you hit a worse shot, and you want. But that's going to be everywhere, I think. Although because of the disparity between how thick the rough is and how deep the rough is, the one thing I've always said is like, if it's completely unfair, like you can't possibly hold the fairway and then it rolls into the rough. That's one thing. You guys have probably heard me say this. I've said it to other people before. You know what? Somebody says, well, you got a bad lie in the bunker. You got a bad lie in the rough. Well, I shouldn't have hit it there, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago listening to a broadcast on TV, and I just started to play more golf, and a sand shot. Like if people when they're first learning, a sand shot's like, what am I supposed to do? How do I get it out of this thing? And I was watching, and they were playing into a par 5, and they had big greenside bunkers facing, and they were like, yeah, these guys, they're aiming for the greenside bunkers. I'm like, aiming for the bunkers? Well, back in the day, those were put in there to be hazards, not something that, now it's like, boy, if it's not perfectly manicured. A quick aside, when I was down in the Dominican Republic years ago watching baseball, and the fields are very good fields, but they're not major league caliber. They're more like minor league caliber. And even the minor league caliber fields are now incredible around baseball. I thought back in the day, that was a separator, right? Like if you're Bill Mazeroski and you're playing second base at Forbes Field and there's rocks and pebbles and everything, you have to have unbelievable hands to make certain plays, bad bounces and other things, and, keeping your face down on a ball that might pop up and hit you in the face. When's the last time you've seen a bad bounce in baseball pop up and hit somebody in the face? Jay, when we were kids, it would happen. It happened all the time. It was routine,
when they started going to AstroTurf fields too, at like the Vet, Three River Stadium and Riverfront, the seams around the base, like first, second, and third base.
Yeah, right.
That's probably the last time, unless it catches, an edge out. But to your point, Rob, probably it's the last time I remember you might see a hop coming off of a seam like that. Other than that, no, they're pretty. So it's the whole world is right.
It's a bit of a separator. The conditions of the field. Well, now they're immaculate.
Yeah.
And so I think it becomes that's another little factor that doesn't separate enough. Defenseless receiver, right? Yeah. These other little factors that are taking a little something away from, and good or bad.
Yeah.
They're taking a little something away, and I think that when you have rough that's immaculate, when you have bunkers that are immaculate, those are supposed to be hazards, not I'm going to aim for there. I don't really care if I'm in the rough or whatever. So there is something to that when I'm watching these events as well.
I said, and Dave, we were talking before we started this, but Terrell Hatton, he's entertaining to me. The guy's entertainer, right? Like I'm sure when he's out there and some coming up 17, all the people in the grandstands there, that's the guy you want to see. There's a personality. It's entertainment. But he was pretty sour about not getting in the bunker on 17, big mouth, right? He got stuck on the downhill side. So not happy about that. So, but watching them, what now you got to be real cute. But look, we'll go back. We all feel the same way. I think every player faced it. I mean, we're not even saying, I'm not saying take the rough down where it's so manageable. Yeah, you're punished or penalized. But it seemed so extreme, like throughout the whole weekend. And I said, the weather getting into it, the rain, making it maybe lay down or make it heavier. No idea, but that made it really, tough. We around here, and we all felt it. There's a lot of pride. I mean, some of the things they showed on TV, the Michael Keaton thing.
Wasn't that great? I love the Michael Keaton.
So all of us Pittsburgh people, our kids are born and raised here. There's something special about that. And that's this whole week. There was a buzz. Last couple weeks, Joy, there was a buzz everywhere. Every course you went to, like we played Allegheny all week, and there was people in from everywhere. Right? Played Diamond Run one day, people in from everywhere. But there was something special about it coming here and being and what it means to be a part of Pittsburgh. So I love all that part. And I think, he said, they all face it. They were all dealing with it. And the big names, Roy Mack guys, some guys were real sour about it. But, as we said at the beginning of this, Spaun, what he went through early, he deserved it. He comes away to winner. And there was a lot of entertaining things that went along. I said, it's a shame that the weather did really, really, really got into it and got into the course. And, that's how I thought. It was great to see that.
I just would have loved to see how it would have played out if you didn't have all that weather. How guys would have adjusted from round to round. How would the course have changed? How would they have made changes? Or did they alter pin placements based on all the weather they're getting? You go in for one round, guys are leaving putts short by 5 feet because of the rain they're getting. Yeah. Like they couldn't learn from the previous round. I would have loved to seen how they would have tacked that course from day to day if there weren't the major weather issues.
Yeah. The one thing though is the wild thing is the British Open. Like, and we are in the U.S. We're spoiled. We are spoiled. Like if we're playing, and you made the point, Rob, if we go into a bunker around here and it's not raked perfectly, or you're in a seam, you're like, oh my God, what's going on? So we're spoiled where we play in the U.S. and the golf courses that we play and things like that. And you go to Europe and you've played over there. Mm-hmm. That's a whole different.
The greens are way slower.
Right?
Way slower.
We have great in Western Pennsylvania, around here. We have some of the greatest courses around to play.
And greens.
They're all outstanding, right? So, and Dave, I agree. I mean, I would have liked to see it too. But then that's when we talked about, okay, there are the elements. That's part of the story, and that's why we go to the Burns situation. Truly, somebody. They could have corrected. You sent out one guy, then you sent out somebody else. That should have been something with everything that was going on. To me, that was a wrong that they should have corrected. You could see, right? I think, again, I feel that really impacted, what that finish would have been. I really wanted to see it. I've taken away from everybody before.
Even Scheffler at one point he wasn't asking for a ruling. He was asking, is play going to be suspended? Because if it is, I don't want to hit the shot right now because, the casual water on the fairway. So it was all in their minds, no matter if you're, 5 shots back or in the lead, the weather is playing a factor in their minds.
I did want to say one more thing about the Open, but I will ask you guys both the golf question. I think if you hit the ball in the fairway, you're entitled to a good lie. Yeah. So if you are in casual water, I don't like the divot rule. I mean, if you're in a divot because somebody else is careless or because you're in a tournament and everybody hits it all in the same place, I think you should be entitled to a drop if you're in the fairway. Yeah. But if like I said before, if you have a bad lie in the rough, well, don't hit it there. But you're supposed to hit it in the fairway, right? I don't know what you guys feel about that.
Well, Dave, you go first. You might have an opinion. I'll give you mine after.
Yeah, were there mud balls too? I'm sure there were some mud balls there.
Right.
When do you institute a lift, clean, and replace?
Right.
In that situation, I'm with you. If you're in the fairway and it settles in your own fairway, because we've been in other fairways,
right? And just drop. You don't even have to place. Drop. Just drop it, right? So if you get a different roll or whatever.
I agree.
Unless you're Bryson DeChambeau who places balls. Didn't you do that? Did you hear about that?
No.
He got relief from walking path, but he didn't drop the ball. He placed it.
Oh. No. I did not see
like
that.
Shane Lowry picking his ball up on the green without marking it.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Oh, he laughed about it. It was 17 over at the time, so
Right.
I think they all get a good chuckle. But stuff happens. Like I do agree too. What I watch too. I think there's another example of that amateurs versus pro. If we're walking up or driving up in our car and see a ball in the divot, like, oh my God, right? They walk up, see it, and then they just play it, and they hit a great shot. Difference. There's a reason why. Look, we have an opportunity to play with Austin Lemieux, Mario's son. He strikes the ball different than anybody. There's a sound to it. It bores through the wind. It does all those things. Just a great ball striker. These golfers are at a different level. So when they see something, and I'm sure it gets them. We talked about Burns, back got him on that play, on that that ruling. But when you see these players, the way they hit the ball and what they do, they walk up and see a divot. And Rob, I'm with you. I don't understand that rule at all either. Like, really, you have to leave it in somebody's, like I said, somebody's carelessness or didn't pick up a divot. I don't agree with that either. But that's play it as it lies. That all goes with it. But yeah, they're just that good that they don't even. I don't know what we say. Play it back in the stands. Come down. They just get up, bam, and they do their thing. And that's why whatever sport you are and you're professional in that sport, you are there for a reason. You are better than the rest. And these guys all went through it, all trying to make their move and make their mark. And Dave talked about it. Rob, you've mentioned it. You got to fight through it. I think the mental thing for all of us. Look, they all have mental. Back in the day, there wasn't. They didn't have swing. Maybe they had swing coaches, but they didn't have a mind guy. They didn't have any, trainers. They didn't have that. They did their thing and played the game and smoked cigarettes around the course. Right. Now you've got a swing coach, a mind coach, everything that goes with it. And when you watch that event yesterday, you kind of start to get, you would get it.
Right. Because there's so much to say. By the way, real quick, I just wanted to say this. Sitting, I was out, I was 13, the par 3, 13.
Yeah.
And there were some, guys hit it in the rough, and now they got a very, very difficult. They had to go up over a little mound and then downhill to the pin was over the top of the bunker, middle of the green left. And if you got above that or had some, so it's a delicate shot. And I could hear people kind of chortling around me, kind of happy when the pros duffed one because that reminded them of them. Yeah. I don't get great joy from that, I will say. Yeah. But there are still shots that can be made. Like I thought the Hovland shot on 17.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's down, it's down, and he's got to get underneath it and stop it on that green, and he has to make birdie, and he made birdie. I mean, you can still make shots. Yeah. And by the way, none of those people that were chortling are making that shot. Most people, first of all, half of them, and me included, would have pitched forward into the bunker. On my follow-through, I probably would have gone down the slope. But anyway, I did want to point it. I don't get any great joy watching these guys. That's not part of the charm for me. The mental part is part of the charm for me. Yeah. That's not part of the charm for me.
Although my wife doesn't watch a lot of golf, and when Burns on 15, when he chunks his first chip to the fairway shot, she grabbed the remote and rewound it and showed my daughters, because that's what they do when they're on the golf course. So she found enjoyment in that. Maybe it depends on how much you golf and how bad you are.
So I even feel like even the shots, like that's one thing, like even the shots they're making, if that was just Oakmont normal, like dry, like the general public or people who haven't been there, until you're there and see, like the TV doesn't do it justice, like what it's about. I said, I feel like, outside of the numbers on the stimp meter, what it means differently. Still, if I had a 12 at one course and a 12 at Oakmont, for some reason, that 12 at Oakmont is different than the 12 other places. I don't know. It's a tighter look. There's so much to it. And you're going to get up over a hump, out of rough and try and land it. They're that good that they do. I mean, look, this is how they make their living. But
right.
I do think that's what goes back to what we said 15 minutes ago. The defense for Oakmont is all the greens. You come down to it, and then you have to deal with the green. So very, very, the biggest test, but again, for all of us here in Pittsburgh, I enjoyed it. I watched every bit of it right to the end, and I know the two of you did as well, and so many other people. So I loved it.
Phenomenal. I mean, to me, it was just a great, and like you said, a little Pittsburgh pride in there.
Yeah, there really was
great
that.
Course.
I think the way they showed, I mean, seeing the turnpike, realizing the turnpike, how many times you go underneath it, the best players in the world are walking over those bridges. And, the old school videos of it, I kind of really loved the whole time. I did the same thing. I made my girls come down. I said, look, watch this Michael Keaton thing. I really like that. There's something special about Pittsburgh, and we've all felt that. That's why we're here. There's something special about being in Pittsburgh and raising your kids here or growing up here, and they showed a lot of that.
And the ending, iconic. That'll be a putt you see on the shows for years to come.
Yep, for sure. Yep. Great stuff. We all loved it. We want to thank, again, our folks at One Team Media for being here for us and getting all this on. We want to thank U.S. Foods. U.S. Foods ensures you reach your goals and keep your guests coming back. Thank you for coming back for us. And for Dave Ricchini, for the big man, Jay Caulfield, and for our folks here, our friends Brad Dresden and North Park Lounge in Cranberry, I'm Rob King. Thanks for being with us for this edition of Offset with Kinger and the Big Man.